With that, I'd like to introduce, come on up, Aaron Levie, CEO of Box. Yeah, don't lose your mic, and you have to jump on the stage.
Okay. Oh, that's going to be...
This is kind of a signature event.
How you doing?
Good to see you. Good to see
you.
you.
Good to see you.
All right. So, well, all right. So, CEO.
How's everybody doing?
Yeah.
Good. Good morning.
Talk a little bit about Box, and then we'll get into some of this stuff. But
sure. Has anyone ever used SharePoint before? Okay. Did you enjoy the experience? Is Microsoft a sponsor? Okay, great. So, what we do is we try and we take sort of what SharePoint would have done had it sort of done content management right, and what we mean by that is how do you have an incredibly simple, easy to use, scalable, accessible from anywhere, platform agnostic way of managing, sharing, and working with your most important content. And you know, frankly, we really got lucky more than anything else that the architecture that we built Box from, which was a sort of cloud-delivered content management system that focused on the end user. We started the company nearly 10 years ago, and so it was 2004, early 2005 that we launched the company. And we just got lucky that a lot of a series of events happened in the industry around mobile, around tablets, around sort of this need to collaborate on any network with anyone. All of those factors played effectively in our favor because we had an architecture that supported that way of working. So, a solution that we had designed for ourselves to solve our own problem around managing and sharing content ended up applying to every kind of enterprise in the world. And that's what we do at Box.
And this started at USC, right? I mean, basically, it was the classic dorm room thing. The first wave of Box, I would say, was just about the box. I mean, and arguably for a lot of people, it's still that. But I know it's going further than that. So as you participated in a number of events with Box in the last couple of years, and it's moving from being a point product to something that looks more like a platform. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so one of the of sort of 5 or 6 factors that we thought were changing about technology and computing, and one was ease of use, the other one was being platform agnostic, the other was you should just sort of be able to start to use software on demand and then pay for it once you know it's working. So of all of these factors, one of the factors was that any piece of software should be extensible when it's in the cloud, and you should be able to leverage web services, so APIs, to be able to access not only all of the data in these platforms, but all of the functionality that we build. And so one of the principles that we have when we build software at Box is everything becomes accessible via an API. So any new feature we develop instantaneously has an API associated with it. And in fact, sometimes it's the other way around, where we build the API first, and then our client is just one of the users and consumers of that API. So what that leads to is not only when you go to box.com, it should be a really easy way to store and access and share files, but actually our platform can then either power or plug into any other content-related process that you have. So we have some cases where in the publishing business, in the education market, a customer will want to build a distribution tool for their education content that's going to go out to millions of students on iPads. And that's something where our APIs can do that fairly trivially, and the magic is really happening above the platform layer with the custom software that our customer or our partner is building. In other cases, it'll be a little bit simpler, where we'll just plug into an extranet, or we'll plug into some kind of customer portal, and we'll be the content layer that is able to expose data stored in Box in those experiences. We have a strong partnership with Oracle as an example, where you can get access to your content from their marketing cloud and all of their marketing services. So we believe that your content should be wherever the business process is, and that it shouldn't just live in one sort of box. It should be available and extensible to everywhere you need it.
So in the concept of just what we were talking about earlier, I think this is a way cool form of infrastructure technology. It relieves a lot of burdens. It's very elegant. This API thing, it's very interesting. What we were talking about in the prior panel was, okay, you can save some money in just infrastructure maintenance costs by going to this thing, but what can it do to the operating model? So as you spend time with your customers at Box, how is the the box infrastructure and the whole ecosystem of the box infrastructure. How are people using that to modify their operating models, and what advantages do you think they're getting from them? I mean, we did the education example, but talk more about that.
Yeah, and you may have covered this earlier. I apologize, I just woke up.
Yeah,
so,
I know. By the way, he's an early riser, really.
So
really.
I'm sure that you guys have done 9 rounds of golf already or
that's
something.
Right, that's right. You can't get this pale complexion if you actually see the sun. I just want you to know. Okay. I just want you to know.
Wait, your pale complexion or mine?
Yours.
Because you're Mr. Tan.
I am Mr. Tan, man. I actually.
I picture you as somebody who just got back from Malibu right now.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
So, so basically, our first 10 years was really, I think, laying the foundation of what really simple consumer-grade technology can look like in the enterprise. So our sort of core thesis, starting in 2005, 2006, and then we started to really focus on the enterprise market. We don't really play in the consumer space. The core thesis was, we didn't call it user-centric IT, but all of the sort of notion was there, which was as our expectations change so dramatically in our consumer lives because of our mobile phones, because of YouTube and Facebook and all these tools and the connectivity we have and the way that we can be social, that's going to translate to our enterprise technology. And the first wave of that change, we sort of, the industry went as far as thinking, well, maybe IT just goes away and people just bring in their own technology and that solves the problem. And obviously that's a very naive point of view because of the scale and complexity of a lot of enterprise environments and the need to sort of orchestrate and reconcile all these different systems. So it wasn't so much that consumer technology was going to power the enterprise and that the end user would sort of own the technology. It was that enterprise technology was going to have to learn from the consumer tools and change the DNA of how they deliver their services. So that was sort of the first thesis for the first kind of 10 years of our business. It's largely kind of played out in that you're beginning probably, or someone on your team is beginning to evaluate new software on the basis of user experience, design, consumability, how much training is there going to be. This is why you see the rise of these sort of cloud disruptors in a number of kind of key software categories that whether it's human capital, CRM, business intelligence, you're seeing these sort of disruptors emerge because they're much more focused on design, user experience, et cetera, and that's where we play. So that was the first 10 years. What has happened is that obviously has changed the IT delivery model in a lot of organizations because you go to a more user-centric approach to IT delivery. We're not actually religious about the cloud. We just found that the user experience we can design and control and create is better when we deliver it, and so that's why we have a cloud architecture. But so the first wave is, okay, how do you take on-premise computing, on-premise infrastructure, legacy systems, find the next generation use cases, have those move to the cloud. But what we're seeing is in the process, and part of this is driven by an IT movement, another part is driven by a consumer movement, where the very business models and the very ways that we're seeing our customers' organizations having to evolve, almost unrelated to the IT stack, but ultimately dependent on it, is that you have all new digital experiences that are being delivered to your customers, right? When you press a button on your phone and a car comes to you that can take you anywhere, that fundamentally changes the role and the way that you compete in the transportation industry, in the retail industry. Any business that has an on-demand logistics component, you have your consumer expectation being redefined as we speak. And so by definition, that means that you're going to need new architectures and new platforms that are going to power the customer-facing side of your business. We're at a top sort of 5 shipping company in somewhere in America, and
it's a big country.
Big country. All I know is I wasn't in Palo Alto, and we were talking about Uber's impact on their business. This is a 100-year-old business. They have modeled trucks from 100 years ago, and basically we were talking about if in Uber when I want to go somewhere, I press a button, I see the real-time logistics of the driver. I can get a sort of an expectation. I'm able to sort of see when I'm going to arrive at my destination. It gives me some estimates. And we were talking about, well, this is a shipping company for home, moving homes, home moving company, and it's a paper-based manual sort of human relationship business. And they're trying to figure out how has consumer expectation going to change their business model and how they work. And one of the interesting factors that they deal with was when they're shipping your stuff across the country, they go through multiple stops so they can be as efficient as possible and get as much sort of load as possible. And they're playing around with the challenge of, if you're looking at a map,
why are you going that way?
Your truck is going through 10 extra states that you weren't expecting. Do you have a rogue driver or whatever? And so all of these things are changing. The business model and the logistics model of a shipping company, if they're going to try and deliver these kinds of user experience changes to their customers. So you need not only a new IT stack to deliver that, but you're probably going to need fundamentally new business models. One business model we see emerging over and over again now is this notion of taking a product business and turning it into a services business. And that is very hard because that's an accounting change, that's a relationship change, that is fundamentally a technology change because—
Can you give an example or two of that?
Yeah, so if you used to be selling a tool, and now instead of selling just a tool or just a technology, you want to have an ongoing ability to support that tool and technology, the ability to maintain that tool and technology, the ability to have a feedback loop where it's constantly improving. The GE case is the canonical example now where they're taking the jet engine and instead of selling you the jet engine, they want to sell you the actual maintenance and long-term sort of support of that jet engine. They'll save you on fuel cost if they manage it for you, because ostensibly they should be better experts at managing their jet engines than every single customer having to build an expertise at that.
So let's do that, because we've heard of that example. We've heard of Box. Where would you put Box into the GE solution? How would that work?
So, for us, what we're going to power is the ability in a lot of these organizations to enable your people to even implement those business models. If you don't have a technology stack that is collaborative, real-time, mobile, can be sort of available anywhere, you can't have a business model that is not just a product-oriented business model. We work with Stanford Healthcare as an example. It's a great example. It's a non-GE example, so it might be interesting. So if any healthcare providers in here? Okay, fine. So I can say anything I want. You won't be able to validate this. So, so basically, if you're in the healthcare business, traditionally the model has been your product is people coming into the hospital, you doing a surgery, you doing a checkup. That's your product. And we have this notion now of accountable care organizations, which is changing the business model quite a bit because it's much more about you're paying for the success you're paying for wellness as opposed to a surgery or an event. And so, if you pivot the business model of healthcare, where they're not necessarily trying to get you into the hospital as many times as possible because that's previously the only way they made money, they're trying to keep you as healthy as possible because that's the way they make money. And if they're going to keep you as healthy as possible and improve your wellness as much as possible, then the hospital as a construct of their operating model is almost irrelevant. That's a physical location is no longer a dependency to their business model. They want to be wherever you are. They want to do telemedicine. They have this new innovative model where they do corporate sites, where they'll have corporate partners like Adobe or Apple, and they'll put small little locations in these corporate sites because they want to keep those employees healthy and well. And so the only way you can do that is if you don't imagine your IT model as something that is sort of constrained to one physical location. You fundamentally have to have a model where the customer record, the user data, the access to the critical information is pervasive across this any physical location that you're going to be working from. And so we're probably one level below the actual sort of business model change, but we're an enabler to, if you're going to work in that new way, you're going to need a new platform to have your employees access their information.
So last question here. One of the implications of this, and it took me a while as we were working together to actually sort of absorb it, is the word collaboration shows up over and over and over again. And I was teasing Aaron at one point because I said when I went to school, collaboration was called cheating and you were expelled for it. So my generation doesn't really know how to collaborate.
And then I was like, thank you for that story.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay.
You're welcome. You got it. Okay. So the issue becomes, but I think what's important is this whole model, systems of engagement, the whole Stanford story, even the GE story, the Disney story. We're talking about people collaborating in ways that are new. And I think that one of the questions I was trying to say is, do you have any sense of, if I wanted to take the collaborative maturity model of my organization, if I wanted to have some way of assessing where we are in the collaborative spectrum and how would I know that I've changed my collaborative state capability, do you have any ideas about that, or is that showing up on your?
So it's interesting. So back on your previous stack, there was a layer called analytics and machine learning. And one thing that we have done at customers with customers' permission is we've analyzed sort of network maps of sharing. And,
interesting.
And so we are a proxy for how collaborative your organization is because you're sharing data on our platform with access rights and permission rights, and the data moves through Box. And we are the layer that effectively controls who can access what. And so we can thus be a proxy for who's sharing what with whom. And so what's sort of not very ironic or that much of a coincidence is that a lot of our preconceived notions about industries show up even in these network maps. So in financial services, as an example, we tend to see these sort of super nodes, and then they sort of share outward, and usually with mostly people inside of the company. In construction, it's lots and lots of fragmented, disparate groups, because that's sort of how construction projects work. In software, it's sort of collaborative internally without a lot of external collaboration. In the media industry, it's actually very collaborative externally because there's always some editor, there's always some licensee, there's always some outside agent that has to work on data, but it's sort of almost as fragmented as the construction space. So we're able to do that on an industry basis, and one thing that we're trying to figure out is how to productize that, so we could provide an overlay for you to say, okay, there seems to be something sort of blocking this organization from moving data very efficiently. What is that? Is that a cultural thing? Is that a network thing? Is that I mean, sometimes it's as simple as it's just literally the way that the IT paradigm has been architected that is preventing collaboration. And in other cases, it's the culture of the business that has prevented it. And until you really can look at one of these kind of maps, you don't know which is which, so you don't know how to go solve that. But I would say, broadly speaking, whether it's generational or whether it's just now that we have the technologies to do this, I think you're going to see more and more collaboration as defined by there's a business team hierarchy, but that should not map to the flow of information in a business. A sort of virtual layer that doesn't have to be constrained by layers of management should be our collaboration universe. And that can be separate from the hierarchy of business. And in a world where we didn't have good collaboration software, by definition, your hierarchy of decision making was your hierarchy of collaboration.
It's called profs.
Yes. I don't know what that is.
Before you were born. Before you were born.
But I'm glad that term isn't still around. So basically, what does that stand for?
It was IBM's email system was totally hierarchical.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah, in the 70s. Yeah, no.
You guys were ridiculous.
Okay, you got 20 seconds. Finish up.
Okay, so you don't want so there's this sort of adage where you don't want your software, when you're using software, you don't want to know the hierarchy of the company that made the software.
Right.
You don't want to see certain features exposed that aren't better for the user, and you know that they're only exposed because some manager was able to kind of get that in front of people. The same should be true about your collaboration software. You don't want your business hierarchy to be obvious based on your collaboration software. Your collaboration software should actually be a different universe, a different layer, because it's meant to actually connect the disparate and sort of impossible to recognize relationships between your partners, your vendors, your internal people. And so that's the power of this software.
Perfect. Would you please join me in thanking Aaron for being here at this godly hour? Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back over to Randy for break. Thank you very much. And enjoyed having a chance to talk to you. Thanks a lot.